Well, folks who got cleaned out by Bernie Madoff are still getting burned. For a California couple, it was bad enough that they had to unload their $12 million Malibu home to their bank, Wells Fargo. But the problem is not that they don't have potential buyers. It turns out one of the bank's senior executives is treating the beach spread as her own party house, going so far, realtors say, as to turn away deep-pocketed buyers. Joining us now is a real estate and business attorney, Shari Olefson, and we should note that we hear that Wells Fargo is investigating these claims. They refused to comment for our story today, but good to talk to you, Shari. Let me name names. Thanks, here. Rick. This is the name of the Wells Fargo executive who has been identified by residents in the area of this house for basically using this house as her own personal party space. Her name is Sharonda Guyton. She is a Wells Fargo senior VP, and she happens to also be in charge of foreclosed commercial properties for Wells Fargo. So she would presumably have information about this property, may even be involved in the transaction with the owners of the house. Have you ever heard of anything like this?
You know, it's crazy. And, you know, Rick, you said before, it really begs the question, how often does this happen when we're really not aware that it's even going on? I mean, on so many levels, this is not, you know, a little dry cleaner where someone who works there borrows a pair of slacks. This is an industry that's highly regulated and it's supposed to have a lot of controls in place. So certainly if they can't control houses, what's going on with the money? This is a huge bank, one of the leaders in the industry, and this is a senior VP, someone who's supposed to embody the corporate culture and values.
Now, Wells Fargo says they have a very strict ethical policy that prohibits this kind of behavior, and I'll bet they do. But at the same time, it's their employee, one of their execs, who is alleged to have been doing this. Is the bank in trouble at all here, Shari?
Well, you know, banks, and some people might argue that the bank owns this property now, so they should be able to do whatever they want with it. But when banks own real estate after a foreclosure, they have some fiduciary obligations, one of which is to make sure that they resell that property at the highest and best value for the neighborhood, for the homeowner, for their shareholders, and certainly not misuse this asset. So I would imagine that the company does have rules against this type of behavior, and I would imagine that this woman might have just thrown her going-away party.
Probably. She might have some more serious problems than just losing her job, though, if the authorities determined that she was doing anything illegal. I mean, is there the possibility of any criminal charges here?
Well, you know, certainly it may have been a trespass if it was without permission, but the most obvious legal issues are twofold. One would be, you know, a misuse of the asset and liability to the homeowner. But in this case, and especially if they don't end up getting the highest and best price, but in this case there was a special circumstance because allegedly the owner had an agreement with Wells Fargo, and Wells was not going to resell the property for several months, going to keep it off the market. There may have been some reasons behind that, not the least of which, with people of the stature of these homeowners, is privacy. So there may have been some other litigation they were involved in, there may have been some other reasons that they didn't want the settlement disclosed, and there may be some liability for making such a public spectacle of it at this point.
So we could be looking at perhaps a civil case on the part of the owners of this house who had to go into foreclosure because they were victims of Bernie Madoff. A final question here, though. The fact that a real estate agent who was supposed to be showing the house was told that the house was not available to be seen, and that there were lots of potential buyers who were lining up, one of whom I read was ready to buy it with cash. They were ready to make a deal. And the fact that the bank said the house was not available to be seen, you know, I've never heard about anything like that.
No, and you know what? In this day and age, I mean, we're looking at the excessiveness. We're looking at very poor judgment. I mean, my two teenage daughters this morning said, you know, Mom, what would have happened if someone was hurt? It's just so obvious. And, of course, the issue that you just raised, which is the obligation to be the caretaker for that asset and eventually get the highest and best price for it, which is completely counterintuitive to not allowing realtors to show it.
Well, we'll continue to watch this story. Shari Olefson, you know, I just can't believe these people who were victims of Bernie Madoff. It's like the hurt. There's just no end to it. Thanks so much for joining us today. We appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me, Rick. Take care.